From the moons of Yavin all the way to the prestige of Naboo, jump into hyperspace all the way to the volcanic oceans of Mustafar. This is the Moose Too Far Star Wars podcast. I'm Sean, that's Ian, and we're going to dive head first into Andor Episode 5. But there's some Star Wars news to get to first that I'm pretty excited to dive into, man. How are you doing today?
I'm good. We had a 3-day weekend over here in Korea, and so it was meant to be really relaxing for people. Being a teacher, I've missed enough days that my school decided I had to work yesterday, so that was interesting. Kind of lost a day of the weekend, but I spent a lot of it painting, which I've been getting back into, trying to get myself back into painting Imperial Assault figures for the Star Wars board game. Because, like, Star Wars figures are fun, man. Everything's Star Wars for me. Everything's Star Wars. How you doing?
Personally, not good. I mean, you know the stuff that's going on there, but this is a form of escapism. So you can press pause on life and talk about a fandom that we love that can be sometimes a little bit toxic. Okay, most of the times a little bit toxic.
Half the time.
But I'm excited to talk some Star Wars today, man, and just sort of lose myself in it for 40, 45 minutes. So I can think of no better place than to start with. This is a few months ago. Actually, I guess it's more than that now since it's somehow already October. Back in April, there were some people that were denying the widespread rumor and report that Lars Mikkelsen, who voices Thrawn in Star Wars Rebels, also brother to Mads Mikkelsen, who appeared in Rogue One, and is rumored to possibly appear in Andor at some point. It was widely speculated and reported that he would be playing Thrawn in live action, Grand Admiral Thrawn. And then for whatever reason, a couple of rambunctious content creators went and squashed it, and I guess everybody just took it for
Forgot about it. Yeah,
just counted it out, and now we have reports that he quite possibly has been spotted on set in the makeup as well. So we'll have to wait and see if that turns out to be true, but it's coming from some pretty reputable places. I think I'm confident in saying, and usually I won't put my foot in my mouth on air, that Lars Mikkelsen will in fact play Thrawn, and Thrawn does in fact not just appear in Ahsoka, but has a major role to play in Ahsoka. My question for you is, man, we all knew Thrawn was coming the second he was name dropped in Mandalorian Season 2. How worried are you or excited are you for this character? And do you think that they will do it right? Because this is arguably the hardest character to take from a different format and put it on screen.
I'm excited to see him, but I think I'm more afraid than anything. Only because he is such a calm and cool and calculated character that when you want to sell such a character who doesn't show much in terms of emotion, and you're trying to put them into the big screen and you're trying to sell this to an audience, it looks boring in the director's eyes. And I think about Spock and how Spock was displayed in the new Star Wars movies. And he's so involved and so emotional that it's like, how is he any different from a human in terms of his emotions, which is something they try to address in the new movies. But he's just so different from like the OG. And I'm afraid they're going to make him maniacal, somebody who's just twisted and screaming. And I want a very calm, a very cool, a very collected Thrawn, and I don't think we're going to get it just because of how it would look on screen. And I would love it on screen, but I think that in the directing options they're going to think it's going to be too quiet. What about you? What are you for it? Are you against it so far? Like, what do you think we're going to see?
I have actually, this might be boring for people, the exact same concerns you do.
Okay, but let's address that. I mean, like, you and I have only done a couple episodes of Moose Too Far so far. Sean and I have known each other for years now, and part of the reason why we got to know each other more, I mean, it started out that he came into the store that I worked in and we started talking. He's wearing a Star Wars shirt. I'm like, Star Wars! Of course, we have to talk about it. part of the reason why Sean and I got close as we did is because we do see eye to eye on a lot of things. We disagree, but I think when it came down to it, the reason why you and I like to talk so much about Star Wars is because we do see eye to eye, and that means we can get into things a little deeper. Or when one of us goes one way and the other one goes the other way, it gets really interesting. It doesn't happen all the time, but it does get like twisted or weird or interesting. And one thing that we've enjoyed about each other is that we appreciate, even when we have a difference, we appreciate it, which is what we want more from the Star Wars fan base, which is like why we thought this was such a great idea for us to do together. While we're going to agree on a lot of things like this, when we disagree, the appreciation's still there. Like my number one character, my absolute favorite Star Wars character, is not his, but he's like, she's a heckin' admirable character. Like she's a fun character, understands why I like her, Admiral Natasha Dalla, but it's not his favorite, but he gets it, and I get his favorites. And so sometimes we'll have these moments where we're like, I totally agree with you. Yeah, that's it. That's it. Yeah, exactly. But it won't happen all the time. I want to address that now because we've agreed a lot on Andor stuff so far.
It's funny you bring up us meeting. I remember the first conversation we had towards the end of it. You had brought up uh, this. You had read somewhere that there was a Knights of the Old Republic series in development, and I remember when you said it, I'm thinking to myself, "Oh no, I've enjoyed this conversation with this guy so much, and now I gotta friggin' crush his hopes here," because at that time there was definitely no Knights of the Old Republic series in development. The closest thing we have to it is actually filming now, The
Yeah.
Acolyte, which we know is going to include some background on some legendary Sith characters such as Revan,
Hmm.
Malik, Bane. There's been some other ones mentioned. I don't know how they're doing it yet, but that stuff has been confirmed for that show. Um, and it's hard whenever you like
Yeah.
you never want to. I mean, I know in 2022 some people live for the sole purpose of killing other people's enjoyment. That's not
Yeah.
us at all.
No.
There's a pretty popular horror movie franchise that's going to have a movie come out this week that's going to divide the fan base, that I'm not looking forward to having to cover, to be honest. But in terms of Star Wars, it's really hard to get two people who are willing to have a different opinion and also respect it rather than
Yeah.
throw the person under the proverbial bus, which happens far too often.
And I think when it comes down to it, as much as we agree on things, there's the appreciation factor isn't just a matter of I respect your opinion. It's a matter of we respect the material. Right? It's listen, the new trilogy. When I tell my students about it, when my students are like, "Hey, what's the order of me how I watch Star Wars?" which is something we do disagree on in the order. I'm like, "All right, this, and 7, 8, 9, put that in the trash can," and that's a joke because as much as I don't seek out the new trilogy, it is valuable, and there are redeeming factors to it. And I'll watch it and I'll sit and watch it. When someone's like, hey, this is the one I want to watch, I'm not gonna be like, oh my god, you've got a terrible taste in this. I'm not gonna watch it or be friends with you. I'm like, no, like throw it on. It's Star Wars. And I'm always keen for Star Wars.
No, I totally agree with that. It's very well said. It's the watch order is something we definitely disagree with. I'll say
Oh
this
yeah.
though for the sequel trilogy. Still a fan of the Force Awakens. Not the biggest fan of the Last Jedi, but I'm definitely not as critical of it when it first came out. And the Rise of Skywalker, I can't defend. I'm sorry, but I will say this:
And I go the
the
opposite way.
the novel of Shadows of the Sith by Adam
Yeah.
Christopher, which is a wonderful tie-in to the whole sequel trilogy, but also adds layers to the Rise of Skywalker, makes that movie far more enjoyable than without it. But I still stand by you shouldn't need literature
Have
to
secondary
enjoy a
things.
movie. But it did enhance my enjoyment of that movie. In terms of Thrawn, though, man, this is what I would say: if someone's doing their job properly over there, uh, it should be rare we see Thrawn get emotional. He should
Yeah.
be for those of you that are watching House of the Dragon, almost a cross between Damon and House from House MD.
House
Cal Katarn,
MD, that's a good one.
Yeah, calculative, even Littlefinger to an extent, not as a schemer, but as a strategist
Hmm.
with Game of Thrones. Like you have examples in pop culture media that you can lean on in terms of how to form this character and still make him like Tyrion doesn't do a whole lot in Game of Thrones, and yet that character is captivating.
Yeah.
And I think there's a way to make a captivating character without having him be too hands-on, with physical engagement. Although if him and Ezra have been out in the unknown regions, there's a chance he's had to be more hands-on because what remains of the Chimera and Ezra and whatever staff was still on that ship when it launched to hyperspace, um, it has the potential for a very grim setting,
Hmm.
and I dig that. I also think there's a chance that Thrawn and Ezra in the show end up having a frenemies type relationship because they've been gone for so long and they were together, and one assumes that they had to lean on one another in order to survive out there. So I am curious to see that dynamic, but boy, am I worried that they could screw this up.
Yeah, I'm fine with the frenemies thing. Tactically, it's the right option, right? You increase the odds of survival with more people that you have involved in your survival. I think that fits. I wouldn't be against that. I'm just so scared of getting somebody who's a raving lunatic. I don't want that. I don't want him losing his cool. I want him being like how Andor's showing the Empire right now. The TIE fighters come in, they're quiet, they're stealth, they're low to the ground. They come overhead, it's suddenly so loud, everyone's on the floor, everyone's afraid of everything happening with the TIE fighters and the Empire and Andor. I want that. I want that terrifying presence. And I want it terrifying because it's quiet, because it's reserved. It's not in your face all the time. I understand they're going to have him on screen a lot, and that's where I'm afraid they're going to get their idea of like if he's always on screen, we have to make him more fun. So we'll see. Right? We haven't seen anything yet. We don't even know when we'll see it. So
Yeah, we know that the show is coming
yeah. Oh,
this.
sorry. I mean, like when we'll first see him, and maybe another series. I suspect we'll see him in another series first. That's what I meant. Sorry.
Oh, you think we'll see him in something outside of Ahsoka first? I suppose that's possible.
I don't know. That's my point. Like they could do it. We don't know where it'll come in. It's just however it does happen, right? I want it to be the terrifying presence with very little presentation required.
The thing that worries me is Thrawn, at least in the new canon, is not really a villain, and even
Yeah.
in the Legends material, like when you really follow his agenda and his purpose and why he's doing what he's doing, he's again not really a villain per se.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't want them using him as, oh, he's the new big bad villain,
Mm.
because to our knowledge, at least in known space, there's no massive conflict between the Battle of Jakku and the Force Awakens. There's minor stuff that happens, there's stuff that pops up that Luke has to take care of, but no massive galactic scale combat. Now, you could certainly do that in the unknown regions with the Chiss. They've been building
Hmm.
that with their literature for a while now.
Which is
Um,
ascendancy. Yeah.
yeah, and I do believe they're going to have a role to play in this. Um, but I'm very worried that they don't handle this the right way. I want to give them a chance for sure, but I'm concerned is all. And I'd like to see them put their best foot forward when it comes to
Hmm.
Thrawn. So we'll have to wait and see how they handle things.
Yeah.
But I also see the what the indication that we've been given so far, at least on screen, is they want to go rescue Ezra. But I'm of
Mm.
the thinking if they get into that unknown regions area, maybe it should be Ezra and Thrawn rescuing them
Yeah.
almost. There needs to be some big conflict that comes from this, but I think it has to stay in the unknown regions, Or maybe you just do that thing that, hey, in The Force Awakens, we said there was no big conflict, but actually there was this 5-year period in between those two trilogies where things got dicey for a while.
Well, there is room for a big conflict. This is going to end up being the whole episode. There is room for a big conflict because we're still at a point where Thrawn has to be pro-Imperial.
Mhm.
And that means fitting the Imperial agenda. And right now, with Andor, everything going on, like, there's a lot for the timeline that they can play with. And especially like in the timeline in that era, like we're looking at possibly Warlords era coming back. And if they do that, there's a lot of room to play with. The novels don't have a lot on Warlords era that there's a lot in novels that's in the Warlords era, but there's room to pit against other forces there. So we'll see what we get. I mean, I'm excited, and I don't want anyone to think I'm not excited. I'm excited for whatever we end up getting. I just hope that there's a faithful representation of Thrawn at the end of the day.
Yeah, I don't know how much I tie my beliefs to him believing in the Imperial way necessarily, at least in terms of new canon, because the way
True.
that the new Thrawn books are, you have the new Thrawn trilogy, and they just completed a prequel trilogy, I believe. I'm still on book 2 of that. And like it seems like his first goal the entire time is, yeah, hey, I'll do this with the Imperials, but the Chiss have this big thing going on in their space, and even though he was technically exiled from the Chiss, it seems to me as if the Chiss is still his number one priority, and
Oh,
I'm okay with that.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Even in Legends, he's pretty self-serving, right? It's like Imperial first in quotes, but he's the one coming out on top, and like that's the reason he was recruited in the first place was because he had that mentality.
Yeah, and we know that they've been setting up. I don't want to get people too excited here, but they've been setting up for a little bit now the new version of the Vong, the Yuuzhan Vong.
For an outer rim conflict, it went into my brain. It went out really quickly because I'm like, I mean, they mentioned the Rakata and Andor. I mean, like they're getting into some outer rim stuff that's like unknown regions. Yuuzhan Vong might be a thing. I'm thinking it. I am thinking it. I don't want to say it too much
I think they're
because
calling them the Grisk, though. Which
oh
is
yes, that's right.
so.
Yeah,
I mean, it's easier to say than Vong. Probably easier
it
for
is.
the common fan to pick up too. Than hey, it's the Yuuzhan Vong. But I'm excited, man. I'm excited for what it has to hold. But I think people need to be patient. This is a
Yeah,
long-term game for them. They know the character has value, and I just hope they handle it right. Because if you handle it very wrong the first time, you're going to
there's
lose.
no recovery.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no recovery on that.
That said, we're 20 minutes into this episode, and Thrawn ate up a bunch of it, and that might be a good thing because I have a feeling you and I are on very different sides of the fence here with this episode. Episode maybe not. Episode 5 of Andor is out, and episode 6 comes out tomorrow. So I'm looking
Tomorrow.
forward to that.
Yep.
I was of the belief, man, that we were going to be getting a action-driven episode in episode 5.
Mm-hmm.
That seemed to be what a lot of the rumblings were being online, and I dare I say it was the slowest episode yet. There's definitely some meat on the bone to pick at, and I can't wait to dive into it. But just general impressions, man, from you for Andor episode 5.
Well, last week we were talking, and I said that I hoped. Well, I wasn't sure how we could get into the action right away because it didn't seem like episode 4 had done enough setup for us to just be like, okay, guys, tomorrow is the big action sequence. It didn't feel like they could have done that right away. And I know I kind of left on like a middle note last week thinking, hey, like I kind of hope there's action. It feels like there's soon to be action. I'd like to get 2 episodes of action because we only have one more episode, right? It's 6 episodes, right?
This will be the 6th episode coming out.
But how many are total per season?
Oh, 12.
Oh gosh, I thought it was 6.
No.
Oh my gosh, this will be
Oh,
great. Wow, I'm sitting here thinking like tomorrow's
we're
the
going for a
finale.
while.
Like this is
Yeah,
going to be
nope.
insane. Good. Well, that's great then. I genuinely, I really liked this episode, and part of it is because it wasn't action; it was exposition. Because there are elements of plot that we needed more exposition. We needed more of Mon Mothma. We needed more. Well, I was curious if we were going to get more of Cyril, and Cyril is the security agent who was let go and goes back to his mom in Coruscant. I was curious if we were going to get more, and clearly we are. And I'm quite intrigued by him because there's a sequence. There's a moment when he's in his room. Did you notice in the background what he has on the shelf?
No, I didn't.
He has. I'm pretty positive they are Black Series clone troopers, and they just took them off the shelf and put them there. But that makes me think we might actually be seeing that flashback with the clones with him and not Andor.
Interesting.
I think that because he's really pro Empire, and I'm thinking that he is actually going to be saved by the clones and is like, die hard for the Empire. Here we go. Right now, clones. I don't know. Like, I don't know how we'll see it. I mean, like whatever it might be. But if anyone's curious, there's a sequence around 34 minutes in. He sits at his bed and he pulls up his hollow projector, and it pulls up the bounty for Andor, and there's 2 clones right in front of him on the shelf, and it looks like they're all phase 1.
Oh,
And yeah, so I don't know if that's just a cute little detail or what we're going to see, but there's things like that happening in the background that in this episode I'm like, this is incredible. I'm so happy with this. This is exposition that I want, and it continues to have dark exposition, right?
it's I I'm firmly, planting my feet in the sand of this is not a kid show. In terms of like if you're 5 to 12, you probably don't give a rat's ass about this show at this point.
Yeah.
But you need to serve your whole fan base, not just kids, because there's adults now,
Hmm.
there's grandparents now who were huge fans of Star Wars when it came out, when they would have been kids. And I think it's really important to serve multiple age groups and demographics.
Yeah.
And this show does that. I think it does a really good job of that too. I just felt like in this episode, they might have been pushing the patience a little bit too far. I thought, okay, we're 5 episodes into this thing now. It's time to. I didn't need a big action set piece, but it felt like more of the same. But I will say this: the parts of this episode that I loved, and I need to go time travel back to 2016 Sean and punch him in the face. And the guy that didn't really care about the Cassian character,
Yeah.
my God, dude, I'm so like we were just
Yeah.
talking about Thrawn. And then
Yeah.
we start to learn that just the little things Cassian can pick up in a moment's notice, like this person is shooting with this hand. This no, you should be walking with.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh my God, he's having a Thrawn moment. And it was just
Yeah.
so incredible. And like when he does it, the reaction by the rest of the group just kind of like, oh, oh, this
Yeah.
guy's real.
It was good to see, and it at first I was like, oh, they're just testing him, right? But it becomes very clear. Like at the same time as it becomes clear for them, it becomes clear for us, which I really enjoy. When a writer is able to give the audience an experience that the characters get simultaneously. Because as far as we're aware, they are testing him. And then when they drop this, like, oh, boss, what are we doing? And we get that moment of like, oh, it's real. Like, this is great. I like that. Yeah, and actually, it's I think it's a sequence not long after that. Oh no, I'm thinking of much longer after that. Towards the end, same group, but they see the shuttle coming down. Who do you think's on the shuttle?
I don't know if it would be anybody big. I think the show's gonna stay away from people big, but it could be officers. Like Vader's not coming off that shuttle to handle this business. He doesn't give a crap about the bankroll.
I think it's the ISB
Could be.
because they're talking about different areas that they control, And with some of the conversation they're having in the ISB, the Imperial Security Bureau, the people all in the white uniforms, I gotta remember that some people hearing this won't know all these terms. They were talking about different sectors they control, and this is the payload for an entire Imperial sector. And I think it's going to be the ISB agent who's trying to fight that other guy, the woman. I think she might be on that shuttle, and she's going to blow up this plan. I think this plan is going to fall through as soon as they get in, possibly tomorrow in episode 6. And it's because she's going to show up and she's going to change everything that was preset. Because otherwise, there's no point in them showing us that there's a Lambda shuttle, unless what's that stage term for, like, they show you the device because they have to use it?
No, MacGuffin?
No, MacGuffin is what they need to do the thing.
I'm not sure. Another moment in the episode while you're searching that up that I loved was similar to him pointing out what hand everybody is, and that this person should be this person should be on that side, and the other person should be on the other side. Is when they're talking about the actual plan, what are they going to do when they get in there? And he realizes that these people have no idea how to, like, disengage the lever. And it was like, and he's just like, "What were you going to do?" We would have figured it out. It's like, and he's probably thinking to himself, pardon me. No, you guys are screwed. Like, totally screwed.
Yeah. It's so cool to see that side of him, because we see that in him in Rogue One. And I wasn't sure where he stood at this point to the point in Rogue One where he's capable of turning around to someone like a Jyn Erso. I mean, like, you don't understand how this works. You don't understand how a plan is made, right? Which actually makes his decision to go in Rogue One that much more important, because he understood going into it, like, this is the end. There is no coming out of this decision, because I know how to see through these plans. And so that makes his decisions way cooler, in my opinion, way more heroic. The term, by the way, was Chekhov's gun. When they show you the thing, it's going to be important. And it's like, why are they bothering to show us a Lambda shuttle and the camera pans with it? And it's like, okay, someone's on that, or that's going to be their backup escape route.
I need you to carry this for a second. Continue your thought.
Oh yeah, no problem. Yeah, it's just Star Wars very rarely does show us things that won't be used, and Lambda shuttles are only used by officials. They're not. We don't really see them used as troop transport, so they're either officials or goods transports. And so either that's more money coming in, they're showing us that as a side part, but it's all quite the mystery there. And I guess we'll have to wait until episode 6 to find that out. We also get to see more about Mon Mothma. And I mentioned briefly that Mon Mothma, of course, it's good to see her develop more. And so we have that the breakfast sequence with her daughter, and this division between her and her husband. Sean, is that you coming back there?
Yep. Yeah, I'm here. I have to ask, though, because I got confused during the episode. I've only seen it one time. Yeah. And when I say that the day that I seen this episode, that my life got turned upside down after it, quite literally.
Yes.
Did they skip the dinner, or is that what they're on their way to?
The dinner was not skipped.
Okay. I was going to say, screw them.
From what? No, I'm pretty positive we're getting the dinner in the next episode. It's going to happen at the same time as the heist, and that's going to add more of this drama. Right? Oh, you muted yourself, by the way.
You might be getting, some feedback on what's happening too.
Yes. So I suspect we're going to get something happening here where it's going to be the heist is happening, dinner party's happening, and we're going to be going between the two. Tensions are going to build up at the dinner as the chances of them getting caught during their heist also build up. And it's going to be emotions boiling over during the party as they're getting caught and entering a firefight. And the party's going to end with one of two things. They're going to have to leave the party. The party gets disbanded because, oh my God, all this money was stolen. Or there's going to be some form of a division or an argument there, which comes from the fact that it was attacked but not yet stolen. So that's what I suspect is going to happen in the next episode. That's what I'm feeling makes sense, assuming, of course, the heist is in the next episode. But
I think it has to be because they've been pretty upfront with the way that they've structured the show. It's in 3-episode arcs.
Yeah.
This next arc should be the end of the heist and the end of the dinner sequence stuff. So, and then we know there's more to come with Mon Mothma because in the trailer we see her in the same Senate chamber that that Palpatine and Yoda fight in. So,
yeah, I've got a question for you about this 3-episode arc thing. Do you think we're looking at a time jump coming up between 6 and 7?
If it is,
I mean, this is something we'll probably talk about next week as well.
I think it's minor if it is, because I believe they said that, again, I could be wrong, but I believe they made it public that season 1, outside of the flashbacks, takes place over the course of a year. And then season 2, which will be the final season, every 3 episodes is a year. So you get year 2, year 3, year 4, and then year 5 leading in to the events of Rogue One. So, and A New Hope, really. So,
yeah. We'll see. That'll be interesting. I'm excited to see how Cassian evolves as a spy, right? Because right now he's just getting into the rebellion. And this is going to be his initiation. Go ahead.
Sure. And it was interesting to see that Luthen, first time we've seen him sort of have some doubt about what was going on. And even though we didn't see him very much in this episode, really just the one scene at the end, which I was a bit bummed about. He's starting to have some doubt, which obviously would happen in a case like this when you're quite literally building a rebel alliance.
Yeah, it's that last scene with Luthen. I love seeing those holocrons over his shoulder.
Yeah,
like getting to see them so much more in detail this time around. The one thing that weirds me out about holocrons is how big they are. Because we see so many iterations of holocrons. Do you remember back when holocrons were the size of like a Rubik's cube?
Yeah. I'm used to like there's your holocron, right? Like
yeah. And that's back in like the Jedi Outcast games.
Yep.
That's kind of what that's back to. Like, I can pick up a holocron in my hands, toss it up in the air, and walk out with it. And here are these things behind him, chock-a-block full of knowledge. Like, the repository of knowledge in those holocrons, that is so illegal to have. In terms of like the in-era laws, like that's a repository.
Those holocrons too can be extremely dangerous for people to possess, even someone like him.
Yeah,
the dark side power can really really mess. Yeah, so we'll have to wait.
You can trap people inside of them.
Yeah, you can do more than that too. The shadows.
Exar Kun in his top shelf there. He's got Exar Kun
hanging out.
Jeez, man. It's like a genie. God, like it's crazy. It's crazy.
There's a lot of lore to dive into with this episode. This episode, though, I did feel like it suffered from that sequel trilogy problem of it was really only, for the most part, based on with Cassian and the gang setting up for the attack. And it doesn't feel like Star Wars when they do that. Like the TIE fighter coming in, that does. But there's this obsession with having to have this Lord of the Rings look. And I know that we have Coruscant, which is great, although we barely see it in this episode. And then did we see anywhere else in this episode? They go back to the first planet, which I can never remember the name of. So much for fucking names coming up on screen helping me remember.
No, I genuinely, I went back and I looked at it the day after last stream, and I think it's Ferrix, right?
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, it was. I was playing with it in my head, and I had to just double check it. I was like, it's Ferrix, right? I'm pretty sure it's Ferrix. Good. Okay, I did get it. I remembered. Yes.
Go ahead. I do think that we need to spend a little bit more time on Coruscant. Selfishly speaking, but like we need to have a little bit more of the Star Wars feel too, and you can't spend all that time on a grass covered planet. And I do think the sequel trilogy suffered from stuff like that. This show has done a good job of not just exclusively being that. But in this episode, I just kind of went, oh, we're really leaning heavy into that. Heavy into that. I hope that's not the direction that we're going uh, forward with. I want to see different planets and the visual aesthetics that they've been given to us on these planets have been remarkable. So I want to see that. It's Star Wars after all. I want to see that variety continue.
Yeah, and it's something I had to keep kind of playing about in my head as well. As you were describing the situation of not going to many locations, I was asking myself, well, in the prequels, what do we see? 3 planets, 1 planet, 2 planets, and then the prequel trilogy. The prequel trilogy goes everywhere. That's where you're getting 5-6 planets in a movie, right? But yeah, in the new trilogy, the sequel trilogy, it does become very planet based. And I was thinking as well, as I was trying to count the planets in my head, I'm like, yeah, but there was a lot more time in hyperspace travel sitting in a ship talking in the OT, the original trilogy. By the way, I was curious about what you mentioned earlier about the party, and I looked it up. I've got the episode playing right now on the other screen. I think they skipped the party.
Oh no.
Because her husband says, I saw, what was it? You were busy tonight. She says to him, I saw you talking to Gar Tafid tonight. And so Gar Tafid, this fellow politician, I imagine, knows a lot about what she's doing for this charitable organization. I think they skipped the dinner party. That was that sequence in the end in the taxi. I thought they were on their way there, from my memory. Doesn't look like it is anymore.
That's a huge
letdown.
Yeah, that's there's misfires, and that's a pretty big one if that's the decision they made. But I guess we'll find out more come tomorrow. If they're doing the Senate, we might not see Palpatine, but yeah, you have to see Mos Espa. Although we've seen scenes in trailers, especially with Rogue One, that don't end up making the movie. So who knows? But
God, especially with Rogue One,
it really
they recut that whole movie.
Yeah.
When we talked about the clone flashback and how we might not get that last week, that was the thing that went back right into the front of my mind. That shot when that like TIE Advanced Defender just drops down at that catwalk in Rogue One, and Jyn Erso is basically face to face with a ship, and that was cut. I was like, that looked like it would have been cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
And we lost it.
Yeah. Yep.
Where is there anything else that to stand out for you in this episode? For me, this was
it is a quieter episode.
I can live with quiet. Like, I'm a Game of Thrones fan, so like I can deal with quiet episodes. This episode just seemed to lack some substance for me. There's definitely some juicy things in it, but I felt like this episode was not that it's a bad episode, but if you were ranking the first 5 episodes, this would be at the bottom of my list so far.
Yeah, I couldn't put it at the bottom for me. I really like the kind of exposition they're giving to us. It's not a notable environment compared to where we started out the whole story. Me forgetting the name again. Ferrix, there we go. It's not as notable as Ferrix in terms of its detail and background, like sequences and everything that you can see. But it's still enjoyable. We get to learn a lot about Cassian. We learn more about Mothma, Luthen. We get to know a lot about all these people and who they are. And I'd put it bottom 3rd, bottom 4th for me, but like it's nowhere near the best, and that I would agree with on you absolutely. The only other thing that I'd talk about with this in the next few minutes here is Cyril.
Yeah,
because he's such a mystery.
I hope that there's some payoff for that character that's not painfully predictable. Like for me, I feel like, oh well, he's just gonna get in with the Empire, and I could see him crossing paths with oh, what's her face, the one that you thought might be Dalla there for a bit.
The ISB, yeah.
I can't remember her name off the top of my head. But I could see them crossing paths and him potentially working for her. But I would like to see something a little deeper than that with this character. I think most people seen this character in the trailers and seen the introduction of this character and thought, okay, well, this is going to be one of the main bad guys. But I'd like to see the character, maybe not go good guy, but like twists and turns, shades of gray. Let's have him find his voice a little bit. That would be awesome for me. I don't want to just see him. Okay, he's a bad guy because he's a bad guy. This show feels far too complex for that.
It's funny you say that, because last week when I was like, I wonder if he could ever have like a redeeming moment, like a redemption arc, and you're like, man, I don't know about that for this guy, man. And you're kind of echoing that.
I still stand by. Like I don't know if they're gonna go that way. I hope they do.
Okay.
But I'm almost expecting.
I took it last week as you being like, I don't want that for the guy. I was like, no, but he seems like a likable guy in
I'd
very
be
strange
for it.
ways.
I'm just assuming it's not going to happen. Is all.
Well, he seems in line now. He's going to be getting a job, right, with this like distant family member. I think it'd be crazy if he ended up in like the Huts somehow, or like not the Huts. We're not in Hut space, but I don't know. Like, it'll be cool to see where he goes. He is a mystery figure. We're clearly getting more of him. Clearly, because they've just given us way too much information about this guy this past episode. So that's kind of, he's the guy I've got my eyes on right now. I'm most curious about him. And I guess as like any last remarks in terms of what's to come, who's got you most interested? Which character?
It's Luthen by far. Like I want to see
Yeah.
more Luthen. Like we know he can't be around in Rogue One because he's nowhere to be found in Rogue One. There's no good explanation for why he wouldn't be right there with them. But it's Luthen's character. I want to see the impact that he has on Cassian, the impact he has on Mon Mothma, potentially a Saw Gerrera or Bail Organa. His character seems to be, I don't want to call him a puppet master, but like the one with the most tree branches, if you will, coming out of him, and that can have stories go and intertwine into all different places. So Luthen for me, and then Cassian's a decent follow up.
Yeah.
Title character. So
yeah, I feel like everyone's got their eyes on Cassian. Yeah,
Karn would be third. Karn's third for me.
Yeah. Yeah. We haven't seen more of Kostek yet. Sergeant Kostek. We haven't seen him in a long time. And I think Alex Ferns did so well with him. I want to see more. that was my takeaway in the first 3 episodes, that I wanted to see more of him. And I'm bummed we haven't seen him.
I don't know if we're going to see him again.
I've seen him slated as credited 10 episodes.
Really?
Which means he's doing this episode tomorrow.
Interesting.
And I have no idea how we're going to see that. I will say I've been interested, and I'll check credit pages every now and then for like all the cast, and they are adding credits to actors as it goes. They haven't taken any away, but like Kostek was very quickly 10. And Cyril, he was listed as 2, 3, and now he's at 5. So like they're keeping tabs of like who's where and who's when. So I'm hoping for more, because he was. I said 2 episodes ago, I was like, hey, like he's the guy I'm interested in, and he hasn't been around. So we'll see what happens, I guess, tomorrow.
Do you have any before we get out of here? Do you have any predictions for episode 6 of Andor?
Well, I did say it earlier. I thought the dinner party was still to come, and then even Mon Mothma was taking her earrings off in the car, so it looks like they were going home. For all I know, maybe there's a second dinner party, and it's going to be at Mon Mothma's house, because that's how it sounded like in that first time they talked about it. It sounded like they were invited over. So, provided the dinner party hasn't passed, I'm hoping for the dinner party tomorrow with the heist How about you?
Prediction wise, I'm gonna assume that the action picks up tomorrow, and that we get a high body count. And again, I don't know any spoilers.
No.
I'm expecting a high body count, though. I think some things are going to go wrong, and we're going to lose multiple characters, and we'll have to see how that plays out on screen. And then the other thing that it makes me kind of wonder is at the very end of this episode, I thought, and maybe I was reading it wrong, I thought that the Imperial Turncoat who's been helping them might have been wavering a bit and having some second thoughts there at the end with
Yeah. Yeah. I thought similar. I did. It's hard to read him, and that's fun.
totally.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll be fun, and that's tomorrow for all of us.
Hey, not much. Less than 24 hours. Less than 24 hours from now,
Yeah.
we get a new episode of Star Wars content. Tales of the Jedi is not far away, so that's coming too. Might even be this month. I could be wrong. Gonna have to double check on that one. I know. I think it's gonna be on at the same time as Andor. So we're gonna have a bunch of Star Wars content to get to here relatively soon. Really quickly though, if you're new to the channel, just want to point you in the direction of some content that we have on the channel right now. We have episode 8 review of House of the Dragon on the channel right now. Episode 1 review of the Winchester Supernatural spinoff. It's a prequel that will come Wednesday, I believe. And then we have our Halloween Ends review a little later this week. If you want to support the channel on another level, you can do so over on Patreon, patreon.com/Fandom Empire. And fact checker Ian has let us know that Tales of the Jedi, October the 26th, 2022. So it
2
will
weeks.
be on during the same time as
Same day.
oh, well, that's
Wednesday release day.
a lot of Star Wars content to take in.
Yep. It'll be fun.
Good
It'll be
time to
fun.
be a Star Wars fan, man. Thanks for doing this.
Oh, absolutely. Always a pleasure.
That's going to do it for us tonight, or today, or this morning, or depending on when you're watching us. So
It is morning
definitely appreciate the support. Don't forget to click that like button, leave a comment down below, share your thoughts on the episode, share your thoughts on Thrawn. Sounds like we're finally getting him. It sounds like it is, in fact, Lars Mikkelsen. But for Ian and everybody else at the channel, I'm Sean, and we'll see you next time. May the Force be with you.